Hi, I'm Rebecca Taylor. You can find me on Instagram as Rebecca Taylor Hair. I'm a fashion color specialist in West Hollywood, and I'm here today to show you a metallic lived-in color melt on my model Taya. We're going to use, it's not brand specific, we're going to use any fashion color that you might choose. It's more about technique and more about showing you the seamless blend using the TRUMATCH extensions. There's no differentiation in tone from the extensions to Taya's natural hair. So the first thing I'm going to do is section off the front of her hair to make it a little bit easier for me to work from the bottom up. Just going to twist these up using clips and then start applying after that. All right, so I started with 5 different fashion color shades. What we want to have be the end result is actually a very dimensional but blended mauve, rose gold, dusty lavender vibe. I prefer to use more fashion color shades instead of it just being really monochromatic or really flat. So the first thing I do after I've mixed all my tones is you take a section that's easy enough for you to handle and saturate. And in her case, because she was pre-lightened yesterday, there's a bit of a line of demarcation from her base color to the pre-lightened ends, which isn't really a problem. It's just we have to approach it a different way. I like that she has a darker base color, so I'm going to use a darker or the darkest fashion color shade in this palette to lessen or soften the line of demarcation. And in this case, I have a very berry mauve tone. So I'm going to start the application right where her base color stops and the pre-lightened starts. So I'm using the darkest color at the base. And for me, I'll use the brush at first, obviously just to unload the first bit of product. But after I get the fashion color on her hair, I prefer to use my gloves or my hands to really work it in and saturate, because sometimes you really can't spread apart the hair, especially with her, she has very dense texture. So if you spread it apart and mechanically move the hair and separate it and really get the fashion color in there, I feel like you'll find a softer, smoother blend of color. So once I have the darker color dropped right at the base to smooth that line of demarcation, I'm gonna go in with one of the other tones. I honestly don't have a whole lot of foresight when it comes to this, other than I don't want to put a color, I have a little bit of vision, like I want it to be very dimensional, but this is gonna vary. This section's gonna be different than this section and different than this section. And at a certain point, you just sort of step back and look at it and make sure there aren't any visual weight lines of color. You want it to be very smooth, very blended, but also very organic. And that's kind of what I'm going for with this particular color. Not every fashion color has to be really deliberate or just like a rainbow or very in your face. So once I've used the second color and really gotten that in there and blended it with the first color, I'm gonna choose a color that's lighter than the two, because I want it to be a gradient from darkest to lightest. And in this case, I have a bit of a peachy rose gold color that I made. And again, not using a brush and using my hands to really work that color in. And when you think you've saturated enough, saturate a little bit more, because there's nothing more annoying than washing this and seeing little hollow spots or blonde that hasn't been colored. So that'll do it for my first section. I'm just going to go across, varying my tones like I mentioned, and then taking down the next section is pretty self-explanatory from that point. So now that I've applied the color to Taya's natural hair, I'm going to apply the same tones to the TRUMATCH extension. You can basically customize the tones like you did on her natural hair, but I'm going to use the same exact melt that I used on this section. You can use a foil or a mesh or saran wrap as a surface to apply this, but I really find it easy because of how well it saturates that you literally can just melt the colors on just like you did with her natural hair. And what I like about these extensions is that they're able to lift up to 2 levels and deposit 2 levels darker. And because there isn't any coating, there's no difficulty in applying these tones. It saturates right in and you get a true to tone result, much like her natural hair. So when you're rinsing these fashion color tones out, just make sure you use cold water on her natural hair and the extensions, because with fashion color, you really don't want to disrupt the pigment very much. It's more or less a conditioning stain, so make sure you use cold water when rinsing the color out. And then the last tone I use, just like on Taya's hair, is this rose gold formula. It really, really, really saturates easy, guys. You do not even have to use a ton of product. So that is the melt. Now she has her darker base there, and I have the darker base there, so it's just really gonna match, not add a lot of dimension. Allow those to process minimum 25 minutes, but really you can let it sit for up to an hour if you'd like. Hey guys, we are back, and I just wanted to show you Tay's finished result of the color melt that we did. If she just turns to the side right here, you'll see the blend from the mauve that we applied and down to the multiple tones using the technique that I showed you before. So real quick, I just wanted to show you how you actually apply the TRUMATCH extensions to her natural hair, how easy it is and how seamless the color is going to blend. So I got Tay to hold the extensions. We already pulled the adhesive off. It's a simple one person, no assistant job, but for the sake of this, I'm gonna have her hold on to these extensions. So let me just section off in this front area the first placement of one of these wefts. I'm gonna have her turn. Make sure you clip away the top hair just to make it an easier work environment for you to place these. But you take a small section or a small slice of hair that's no thicker than the combination of both of these wefts of extensions. So go ahead and take one. And honestly, if you've pre-colored several different combinations of color, it's better if you mix match one or two. So the two sandwiches that you're using don't have to be identical. It's better if you have one that's one color melt and one that's another, just to be cohesive like the rest of her hair that we've done. So I'm gonna take the bottom weft and just apply that close to the scalp. Not too close, because then you have too much tension and it kind of pulls and is uncomfortable for your client. But you're gonna go ahead and push that down, tap that a bit. Try not to touch the adhesive very much when you're applying them. You don't wanna get your finger oils on there. And you just want to put the top one on and slide that across and give it a press. And you literally have a weft applied at that point. That's how easy it is. It's very secure and it blends with the rest of her hair. So what I'm going to do now, which is pretty much your last step outside of a little bit of touch-up styling, is to trim the ends of her hair so you can't tell where the extension starts or stops and her natural hair starts. So you can see, in this case, it's a bit longer than everything else. So you just want to pull it up on an angle. You can use a razor if that's your cup of tea. You can use shears, whatever it is, but you want to go in on an angle just to make sure it's not a hard cut. And so it really, really seamlessly blends. And just slide that down. And then you really, really can't tell where the extension stops and her hair starts. If you wanted to even go back in with a razor again or a thinning shear, you could do that, but I'm pretty happy with this. Maybe just one more slide. I'm pretty happy with the results. So there you have the application of the color with the addition of the TRUMATCH extension that we colored as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed it.